and welcome to another episode of Wild Ones podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Gillian.
And my name's Alicia. Wild Ones podcast aims to bring you tales of adventure, tales of bravery and tales of resilience.
So we hope you are comfortable because we have about an hour's worth of conversation coming your way right now. Today we are joined by...
Peter Kelly.
Who are you?
That's a good question.
What do you do?
So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Imployable.
Before we get into you telling us about Imployable, what we want to do is find out who Peter Kelly really is.
Oh my God.
Now, you have been in local press, you've been in national press for Imployable, and you've also been a guest on several other podcasts, TV appearances as well. But for those who are watching and listening, it's not going to be obvious. They may not have seen you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions to find out who Pete Kelly really is. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Pineapple on pizza?
No.
No? Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Ant or deck?
And
Why?
no deck. Because he's more my height.
Wait, we were discussing earlier on as well, your adult career started when you joined the Royal Marines. But before that, do you want to share with the audience what you studied that you alluded to earlier on?
You're a thespian.
Oh, God, no.
So what did you study at college, Pete?
Well, at college I actually did uniform services, but growing up, I guess it was in a bid to get rid of me. I did some amateur dramatics, drama school.
And what was the thinking behind that? Well, I mean, where were you? What was the plan?
Well, I kind of knew I was going to be a big deal. And, you know,
I'm kind of a big deal.
yeah, and it was, you just can't deny the world.
No,
you know,
you've got to let it out.
Right, basically.
Your life could have been very different.
It could have been. It could have been. So
It could have been on Grange Hill.
Yeah, but then they realised that I was an absolute vagabond. But I started doing drama school, so I liked acting, because basically acting another life that wasn't my own was a much better world to live in. And so it all ended really when I started doing tap dance. So I had to do tap dance to...
You could have been in Cats.
Oh yeah, there's not
Yeah.
career breaker there.
Are you sure it wasn't because when you're at school, drama is easy?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, we worked it out.
And I used to just be a clown anyways.
And is there an
Sorry
element...
to anyone that thinks that it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's
but
not,
when I
no,
was
it's
at
not.
school, drama was a lesson that we all just used to mess around in.
Yeah,
For sure.
I don't think I ever did drama.
Mm.
So is there an element of wanting to escape life in general from that age that you thought taking you into drama would be able to do for you?
Yeah, so I had quite a tricky childhood really. So I grew up in a council estate in South London. Don't know my real dad. Mum disowned me at about 10 years old, so it's like living another life, I guess, that wasn't my own. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, but actually probably thinking about it, it probably has an element to do with it.
And do you think that's what took you into uniform services as well?
Yeah, yes and no, because I actually was so clueless about what I wanted to do. And the thing is now, what's funny is I look at things, 10, 15 years ago, such as like Facebook posts and things I'd written, and I was like completely illiterate, it's mad. And it wasn't even text speak, I was illiterate.
That's the thing with Facebook memories.
No, I hate it.
I know they keep popping up on mine, and I'm like, oh my God, no.
My God, who was that person, And I think, people change, but I think the lack of real opportunity, I wasn't very good at school, I was a clown, and then I got to college and I just used it to have a good time and make friends, and it was the first time in my life that I actually got real friends, so I made best use of it. And threaded college, basically failed college, and it was like, well, what do I do with life? I could go the way of a couple of members in my family, I could go the way of a few people I knew, which was the wrong way, prison way, or it was the military. And my college director was an ex-Marine, funny enough. And he said, "You are a dick." And I was like, yeah,
he was right.
He was probably right. But he just said, look, you're not compatible with academia, you're not compatible with people, but I tell you where you would be compatible. And I was like, right, okay, it's in the Royal Marines. And I was like, okay, sounds good to me, let's go. And then at the age of 17, whilst I was still in college, I did all my pre-joining stuff. And then at the age of 18, told my stepdad, who is my dad, he's been there since I was young. I went, oh, by the way, I'm off in like 3 weeks. And he was like, where are you going? I was like, yeah, I've just joined the Marines. I've done all my tests. I'm off. I'm going. Oh my God, he kicked my ass all over the room. In hindsight, looking back, yeah, I have kids now, and if one of them said that to me, I'd probably chase them around the room as well. But back then, I was in not a good place, I guess.
What was the concern on his behalf, do you think?
My dad is very non-emotional. He's emotional, and he's emotional, but he's non-emotional. So it's like, I think he just brought his emotions forward then, and he felt like I was abandoning him, I guess, because it was just me, my younger brother, and my dad, and it had been us for so many years growing up, and then all of a sudden I turn around and go, by the way, I'm off now, cheers for all your help. And I think he saw that as a bit of a kick in the nuts, because I didn't invite him into that journey with me either, so it's like
I think it's hard for parents anyway to say goodbye to children at that kind of age, isn't it? So we spoke about it on our first podcast about when I left Plymouth and moved to London, and it wasn't quite the same, but I left university, went home, told my parents that I left university, and basically in the same breath said, and I'm moving to London, and they were devastated.
It's a lot of information
because I hadn't really discussed with them that was my plan. Because at that age, I just thought,
but when you're that age,
what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you make these decisions, but the consequences don't seem like my dad. I guess it was his fault, actually, the military thing. Because I remember when it was, I'm in the jungle, get me out, or I'm a survivor, get me out of here. Before it was I'm a celebrity, they had this I'm a survivor, get me out of here, or whatever it was. And the spin-off was that celebrity one. But in there was a Royal Marine who was part of, and he absolutely smashed it. And I thought, wow, that's great.
You watched it on telly.
And I watched that. And then there was a documentary about Iraq. And I watched that as well. So in my mind, everything was like, well, yeah, I think that's where I fit. And I think there's an element as well of people that don't know. I mean, you're always afraid of what you don't know. I'd done my research. I knew what I was going into, but my dad hadn't, and I hadn't given him that research. So it's funny because I phoned him from Afghanistan, actually, in a bit of a state from this one thing that had happened. And there he was again, non-emotional, told me to sort my life out, which I did. And then when I get home, I was like, well, he turned to me and he said, well, I haven't watched the news in months. Because I'm so scared. And I was like, wow, you've never actually shown that side of me, of you to me before. So, he's one of these guys that growing up was, horrendous at times, and he was strong for us just by being strong, not an emotional wreck like me.
Difficult to show vulnerability when you're scared for other people as well as yourself.
Yeah, and I think it can work against you, and it has done, because sometimes I'm too emotionally detached, because since I was a kid, I detached myself emotionally from everything that was going on around me, and I joined the Marines, and in training you detach yourself emotionally from what's going on, and then when you're in war you do exactly the same, and then you come home and you can't really turn it off, and it becomes almost a permanent trait. The difference is some people see it as a negative. I use it as a positive.
Yeah.
And that's where we are with business, basically.
Yeah, I think we've had a similar conversation because my grandmother who raised me died a week ago, and I haven't cried. And throughout my service as a police officer, I rarely got upset about anything, and I still don't get upset about things now. I'm more likely to cry at a film where animals die than I am with people, which is really weird.
You find yourself getting emotional about not real stuff.
Yeah, exactly that, because actually you can use that guard that you put up to protect your own feelings to advance in life. Yeah,
I'd say that's about right. I mean, the only real time I get really emotional is funerals, funny enough, but usually, like you say.
Well, I'll keep you posted on that one.
Yeah, I remember when Ben died, because me and Ben, we went to college together, and loads of us who joined the Corps went to college together, grew up together, and then Ben died on Christmas Eve, and I was probably, I was on my Signal course at the time, but I was on leave and I was hanging one on, so I was just drunk for the whole of Christmas. Yeah, I didn't turn my phone on, and the next thing I turned the news on, and there he was, and I was like, okay, that's not good. And then it's funny because then I turned my phone on, and everyone had been trying to call me.
Yeah, to let you
even
know.
Ross tried to call me from Afghan, and so I got a rocket. But I remember for that whole 2 weeks leading up to his funeral, I was completely dead to emotion until I saw his coffin come out, and then I was just absolutely ripped apart. And I stood there and I spoke to his ex-girlfriend, I spoke to his parents, and I was just written off, absolutely written off. But I guess it's time that helps you grow to be able to engage with people in that same position. So like when it comes to mental health, obviously I've got a lot of friends who are going through it, and I've seen it firsthand where you've got younger people who are still serving now who don't understand our generation. So they don't know how to talk to our generation, and usually it comes out really wrong, which can be seen as quite insulting, but it's, you know, it's just lack of knowledge and experience. I think that is, and that was just one of those cases. I think that there's just complete lack of experience.
So while we're on the subject of mental health, do you think that now with knowledge and experience of your own life and your own lived experience and having lost friends through combat and in war, do you react differently now to the pressures of everyday life than what you would have done, for example, 10 to 15 years ago?
I've gone through 2 different phases actually, or maybe even 3. And there's the point where you're in and you've got all the lads there, and you know, back then it was all lads, you know, until just recently, but you're in that space, so everybody's in that space, and you kind of harden to it until a point where your stress bucket fills up and it just tips. And I dealt with it through alcohol, so I was just getting on it every night, and it was just terrible until one night I collapsed because I drank so much, and I collapsed, and they took me into the sick bay, and the doctor was like, you nearly give yourself a heart attack through alcohol.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's a problem now. And then you go through another phase, which is where it's like coming to terms with everything that's gone around you. Now, the thing is, I talk a lot about when it comes to mental health is people have this misconception that PTSD and mental health and this stress disorder is because of stuff that you see, and it's not. I've been there where a lad in front of me got blown up and I'm holding his legs and they're not attached to his body anymore. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that doesn't affect me. The point of stress is that once you reach a level of stress, it doesn't go down anymore. That's your base layer of stress. And then when you add something else, so the way it's explained to me and the way I best explain it is that you're pre-deployment, you're excited but apprehensive, but so your stress is already a little bit higher, and then you get on the plane and your stress goes up a little bit higher, and then you land in theatre and your stress goes up higher, and it never goes lower than that.
Are you talking about stress in terms of adrenaline?
No, I think it's different because I remember the first time that I was in a firefight and the adrenaline hits you and it's exciting and you start laughing, and then you're all there laughing like, what are we laughing at? You know, this is life and death stuff now, but you sit there giggling anyway. The second time it happens, you're not giggling anymore. You know, you're like, right, this is real. And then the third, and then the fourth. Once it's happened 5 or 6 times, you then start to expect it. So your stress is up to a level now where, and I remember for me, because I was on the mobile operations team, so I was basically doing helicopter reconnaissance and running helos from the ground. And I come out of Bastion, but I'd be on every deliberate operation that's going around the AO. So when I was in Bastion, I was safe. So my stress was good. The minute I left, that's when it went up. Mm. But it went down because I got back into my safe zone. So it's that prolonged exposure to stress that is the real problem.
Yeah.
Because your stress bucket just fills up and fills up. And then when you come into the outside, into civilian life, suddenly things are a big deal to people that aren't really a big deal. And it's hard to comprehend because someone's having a meltdown over something. And you're like, well, I've seen lads die. Do you know what I mean?
Your level of norm is completely different.
So then you start getting stressed out about the fact that they're getting stressed out about something they shouldn't be getting stressed out about.
Yeah.
So it is so many different things.
And you're right, it builds your stress levels and what you can handle. Your stress goes up and what you can handle goes down.
Yeah, exactly. Your tolerance is just
your tolerance,
shot. Yeah.
And you're right, and every single thing that happens, it adds to that stress bucket, like you said, doesn't it?
And I think,
and it will never deplete. It just
no, I think
going.
There's ways in which it will never be at the level that its lowest level. You will always sit at, say, I will always sit with my stress bucket 50% filled, for instance, and there'll be times where it's more, but it will never go below 50%. And it's how you manage it. But your body's a very complex, weird thing. So when I'm not going to say I'm not diagnosed with PTSD. I don't think I do have it. I think I just have stress like everybody else. But I used to deal with it in different ways. So I used to wake up crying or screaming, but as soon as I was awake, I didn't know what's going on. So my wife used to wake me up quite violently, and I'd wake up. And she'd go, "You're crying in your sleep again, and you're screaming in your sleep." And I'd be like, "Well, I don't know. Now I'm awake, And
I think that's really important to make that connection with walking around with a stress bucket that's full and then adding in extra traumas.
Yeah.
So I think the average person can walk around with a full stress bucket, and eventually it will overflow unless you deal with it through, wellness, exercise.
I think it's exposure as well. So I was very lucky, I guess, to have quite a traumatic upbringing, if you like. So I had been exposed to a lot of stuff before I'd even got older.
We talked about this in our first episode.
Yeah, and I think it makes a big difference because my tolerance for stress is a lot higher, I think, than other people, where, it's all I've ever known, certain aspects of child abuse and bullying and all sorts of different things that go on. And you get that exposure. But then you find someone who has never had that exposure, and then all of a sudden they're thrusted straight into a war zone, for instance. They're much more susceptible for that post-traumatic stress because they've never dealt. This is something completely new to them. So when I'm under a level of stress, or when there's chaos all around you, I remember being a kid and there was chaos all around me anyway because there's a gang fight happening outside my front door, or I'm getting beaten up by the next door neighbour. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I kind of know where I am at the minute. And,
did you live in London until you joined?
No. So I grew up in South London, in Croydon. I go back and see my dad. I went back. I'm a Crystal Palace fan, so I was very lucky that the head of commercial for Crystal Palace rang me up. Perks of the jobs, I guess.
This makes sense now. I remember seeing this on your social media.
Yeah, so I'm a huge Palace fan. So I've even got a Palace tattoo. So he called me up and said, his name's Robin, he's commercial for Crystal Palace, still the sponsorship. And he goes, "Oh, I've got this great sponsorship deal for you." And I was like, "Okay, I'm listening," because we just sponsored Argyle in the FA Cup.
This brings us on to your business. So you're going to have to explain the business before you explain the link.
Okay, so career done in the Royal Marines. I came out with project management qualifications, highly qualified.
When did you leave?
2015. Okay. Massively underexperienced, and then spent a year unemployed in the job centre. Now that is a mental crusher because through training as an 18-year-old and then throughout your career, you're a big thing. Yeah, in your own little world. Granted, you come out and you're like, "Oh, I'm a Royal Marine," and people think, "Oh, right, that means you're quite fit, right?" It's like, no, I'm fucking awesome. But in your own little mind, in your own bed space, you're a legend. But then you come out and you enter the civilian world where generally no one cares. And so all of a sudden I'm in the job centre stacking up, signing on to get my £70 or whatever it is. And I'm just thinking, I used to be a somebody, and all of a sudden it's like, hang on, I'm actually worthless. And
so many employers will look at your CV and say, "Oh, he's been in the Royal Military or Royal Marines or whatever you've been in for 10 years.
You're
what does that mean? Like, what have you
done commercially?
What have you done? Yeah, what are your skills? They don't see anything more than what it says.
And some people just don't want to. You get the people that I was like, yeah, we've got the Armed Forces Covenant signed and our corporate social responsibility. So yeah, come in, we'll train you up. And there's some fantastic businesses doing some fantastic work they're working with that is doing that. But the problem I had is I'd gone into project management. So at the time I was going into construction project management. That's where I thought I wanted to go. I was 6 months in, I was like, well, I'm actually a nobody. I couldn't rejoin the Corps because at the time in 2015 we were absolutely rammed. They keep throwing all sorts at me now to rejoin. So I had no options. So I thought, well, I've got to get out of this. Everyone I was talking to, I was like, oh yeah, what do you do? Oh, I'm a former Royal Marine. That's what I used to say. Not, oh, I'm a job seeker, unemployed. I'm now about 30 grand in debt because I'm trying to sustain the lifestyle. Ruined me. Then I thought, right, something's got to give. And that's where the bootneck comes out and says, sort your life out, do something. So I sat on YouTube for about 6 weeks, learning how to code, just practicing. And then one of the lads was coming out. He's like, yeah, I'm starting this business. I said, mate, I'll make you a website. I'll charge you 50 quid. And he's like, oh, mate, made him this website. It's absolutely crap. But he was happy with it for 50 quid.
Someone's got to start somewhere.
Because he's like, that's 50 quid. But all of a sudden I found this big opening in the market where I thought, well, for someone coming out who's starting their own business, they can't afford to go and get £5 grand website. So I started getting a lot more commercially minded now because I was thinking, well, if I can learn a little bit more, I can be that go-between where someone comes out, I build them a website, it lasts them a year. So I started finding this sort of niche, if you like, this gap in the market where people are coming out the forces to start their own jobs or their own companies. They couldn't afford, expensive websites. So I thought, well, I could build them a cheap website that gets them a little bit noticed, gets them their first few customers, pays for itself within the first couple of months to the point where they've got enough customers, returning customers, they can now go and invest quite happily into a £5 grand website. And I must have made about 40 websites. I had quite a big portfolio by the time I sort of...
Had you ever done it before that?
No, never. I was
Love that.
Not technically savvy at all. I mean, it just goes to show you there's nothing you can't learn these days. And then I remember sitting in this one interview with the person who ultimately employed me. So I was still obviously trying to get a job because I ended up building websites that were about, £1,000, but they were really quite good, some really good websites. And then I remember sitting in this one interview and it's like, right, have you ever ran a project before? And I was like, I've run loads of projects, loads. I've run them in the military. Luckily, he was an ex-army captain, so he knew. I've run them in the military, I've run in the Civvy Street. And he's like, well, have you ever ran a £500,000 project? I was like,
bum clench. No, yes.
You know what? I think that's the point where you go, well, I just said, no, I haven't. No, I haven't.
But I can try.
It's not even about that, actually. When you start thinking of the psychology of it, I said, look, now you associate big number projects with big amounts of pressure. I said, right, it's one thing building a £500,000, this is for a tech job, which is now I'm in the tech world. I'm thinking, well, I could be a tech project manager. And I was like, there's one thing building or running a project for a company that can afford to lose 500 grand. And I said, but I tell you what, you don't know pressure until someone gives you their last £1,000 and says, I need this to work or I'm finished. And you sit there and you have to come out with the goods at the end. That's pressure.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Because the pressure isn't just about the money. I mean, these big companies, trust me, I've seen them waste millions of pounds.
Yeah, how much does that money mean to that person?
They write that off, you get the sack, job done. You lose someone's final £1,000 in the world, that's, that could break them. And on top of that, the problem with the military is you've got this underlying unspoken law of not seeing off your oppo. So you're not going to, I'm incredibly loyal. I would never purposely see off one of my oppos. So, you add that pressure onto you. Yeah. So I've got the pressure of home not being able to pay the bills whilst racking up credit card debt, loan debts, all sorts, whilst trying to find people to buy websites off you, whilst trying to get a job, whilst trying to explain why you're good enough for this job. And then I sat in this interview and I had a couple of interviews with him, and a guy called Ollie, really great guy, sat me down and said, yeah, we'll take you on. And that was as an app development project manager. So now I'm starting to piece everything together. Now I reflect. So I then started working with lots of big corporates. So there's lots I can't name, but I was project manager for Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy's new app, RAC travel insurance app. So, some quite big companies. The exciting part was working with startups. These are people who didn't have a bloody clue what they were doing. And they would literally come in and go, I've got this great idea. And you sat there and you're like, yes, right, let's go. But then we had some really great ideas. So all of a sudden, working with the big corporates is fine. It's nice. It's a project. And
it's what pays the bills.
It's a nightmare. But then the startups are really exciting, because I remember sitting there with one startup. She's in Plymouth as well, funny enough. And she came to she did a quote on my life insurance, right? And then we sat there, and this was with Anna, my wife, and I wasn't there, I was at work. She goes, what does your husband do? Right, he's a project manager for an app company. She went, I've got this great idea for an app. So then I met with her, and we sat at my dining room table, and I helped her draw it out.
I love how that works. You could just meet somebody so random, and actually you were meant to meet.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean...
And I love that you're telling us this story, because she told us the same story, so it's obviously important to both of you.
I think so,
because
the
first time we met her, she told us the same story.
I remember sitting there in her first investment meeting. So I sat there and helped her get her investment, and then I concepted her new upgrade of the app, and then I watched and helped her through this journey and project managed her first app build. And now, obviously, the knowledge I gained through that was just incredible. I'd seen every aspect of app development, of starting a business, of funding. I'd seen it all. I'd done it. I'd supported it. And so when it came to my idea, and I sort of sat there thinking, well, why are so many people having problems getting into work when they leave the forces? And I was like, well, I know why, because no one knows how to transfer skills. No one knows where they fit, and no one knows what it is that they actually want to do, because they're churning out plumbers courses, brickies courses. You spend $2,500, $3,000 getting them qualified up, then they kick you out, and then you get there and you go, I don't want to be a plumber anymore. This is crap.
Yeah.
So I spoke to...
It's the same as when you're at school,
well, exactly,
isn't it? You do all of these GCSEs and A-levels, and even go on to do a degree, but it may not actually be what you want to do when you...
Do you know 49% of graduates in non-graduate roles? So 49% of loan debt is not getting paid back, but mostly 49% of people who went to university to do something are not doing what it is that they wanted to do. It's about... I think there's a big piece when it comes to veterans' mental health. A big bit that adds, that I think is the tipping point, is purpose, right? Repurposing. Now, I'm very lucky, because I think now I've actually found my purpose in life. I think I found why I was actually put on this earth. And when I reflect, and this is why my mental health is in such a good place, is I've learned to forgive my past, right? So I used to hold on to things about my mother and the stuff that she used to do to us, and I used to hold on to it and use it as kind of an excuse for being a hand grenade. It's fine, I can fly off the wall now and go and get drunk and call people names, because I went through this as a child. And then I had this stark realization not long ago. I sat there and went, right, if I hadn't gone through this, and this, I wouldn't be here. If one tiny thing had changed on this timeline, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at all these things as a negative, these things were a rite of passage to give me the tools, the knowledge and experience I need to be able to successfully do what I was put on this planet to do. So it gives you this, it's not an ego, it's a sense of confidence that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Assurance.
And then it means I make decisions with conviction, because I know what I'm here to do. So I've just completely forgiven my past and gone, I needed that. I needed that experience. I needed to know that I could go through that. I needed to be unemployed for a year, so that I could sit there and talk to people in the job centre and understand what they're going through. If I hadn't had that year of unemployment, I would be very condescending when I'm talking to people. But now I go there and I talk to people and they're like...
So you've created an app, and that app is to cover off initially the transition between being a full-time service personnel and going into Civvy Street, but now it's expanded so it covers much more than that.
Well, we just very cleverly... accidentally realised that it works everywhere. So lots of tested over the last 2 years, and then we put it out there, and we did a major pivot, because we were charging for jobs like Reed and Indeed. And then I woke up one day after a couple of meetings and went, you know what, I'm never charging for anyone to post a job onto the app. It's like, you could do it for free, find money another way. And we now become ed tech, essentially, because we're educating people on what it takes to get into a career or transition career. So although it started for service leavers, anyone can pick up the app, and we've mapped out all the journeys and use it. So if you're in one career, in a civilian career, you just pick it up and it will tell you what you need to get to a new one. So yeah, the app and the way it works and why it works for so many people is that you could be in any career and you can look at a job that's unemployable and it will tell you how you fit as a qualification or qualification-wise and experience-wise as a percentage. So you could be...
I downloaded the app.
Yeah?
It is very impressive. Have you got it on your phone? Yeah, it's great.
It's a series of events. Some are accidents, some are not. It's just how it works out. But so I could go on there now as a project manager, say, well, actually, I never wanted to be a project manager. I always wanted to be a vet. Right? But it's if you start thinking about how costly it is to change careers, because the risk is so much higher, because you're going to lose a wage. You've got to retrain, and that's going to cost money. You've got the risk of not getting employment. You've got to start back at the bottom of the ladder. There's all these things to think about. We call it the short-term pain for long-term gain. Because say you're in that position where you're not happy with your career, and you're not, and nothing's going to change it. And what you find is you'll job hop. So you'll stay in the same industry, but you'll just move around the industry trying to find a better employer. Something that makes it worthwhile. A good manager or good
bit more money. Yeah.
But ultimately, you'll never be truly fulfilled. So what you want to find is actually, let's get people where they belong, And so someone could sit there and say, well, I want to be a vet. They'll go on Imployable. We've got live jobs and then industry insights. So we give insights on about 1,000 different jobs. And then it'll look and it'll say, right, you are 10% qualified, 15% experience. You press on the percentage and it says, right, you have this qualification. You need this, 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 and this. You press find, and it gives you every qualification provider in your area.
That's brilliant. So how do people find your app, and what's the link between the job centre, somebody walking into the job centre looking for a job, and how do they get to you?
So we've just actually been rolled out across Cornwall with the job centre. So they're actually delivering it to everybody in the job centre to use as a career tool. And it's Friday. We're about to start the rollout in Devon. And then I think by sort of mid-June, it should be in 72 job centres through the south.
That is brilliant.
That's, the thing about a business is you can't rely on one route. So we've got projects running with the police, the Ministry of Justice as well. So we're supporting ex-offenders into work. These are the differences. These are big things that we're chewing off, because if you can have even a 1% difference in reoffending, for instance, that's seriously big, not only for the individuals themselves, but commercially, but also economically as well. So if you have a reduction in reoffending, that relieves the pressure
due to
their
opportunity for employment.
Yeah, so it looks like we're nothing's set in stone yet. It's all going through talks, but I think hopefully the gold standard is that we're in every prison. So every prisoner, once they're in prison, will have access to Imployable, so they can look for different careers whilst they're in there, and then go and work with the education department within the prison to get the right qualifications, get the right jobs whilst they're in prison, and then we will connect them with employers to hopefully get employed before they even leave. So they can literally leave the prison and go straight into work. Now, the key to that is big partners. We're working with Timpson's and Yellow Ribbon and some really big companies that, support that. Now, if we can have even a small effect on that, the pressure is relieved on Home Office, on policing, on the NHS, on the HMPPS probation services, right? And it's helping people to firstly know that there is something else for them, that there is a second chance, and to know that, that there is options, which gives them a goal, which means they'll be better behaved in prison. All these different benefits of, and it doesn't just work with the prison. The app is exactly the same as it works for service leavers, the police.
So if you take that mould, is sort of the same or a similar mould that you can apply to people coming out of uniform services?
Yep.
So the same kind of thing, they can look at the possibilities of what they might want to do and learn where they can retrain, and then get linked up with future employers.
Exactly, and that's what we're about to kick off a pilot next month, first pilot of its kind with the police. So we'll be providing a resettlement course for the police, hopefully, where we'll take them, we'll give them all the tools that they need. Because the police is not dissimilar from the services, and neither is the ambulance service, the fire service. They're still in an organisation. They just don't go to war, but the stuff they see and the stuff they do is horrendous.
I think
and you know that more than anyone.
We've had previous discussions in the past about definitely coming out of uniform and thinking, well, I've got all this experience, but actually, okay, you can write it on a CV. Is it translatable? You've got all these skills that you can move across into a civilian role, but it's convincing an employer.
And it's getting in front of that employer in the first place as well, isn't it?
What we've done is we don't use CVs, all right? We have functions in there that you can download your employable profile as a CV if you need it, and then you can edit it and send it on. But essentially, we're doing away with CVs because we do it all digitally. So you go on there, you build a digital profile. It's all done on fact as well. So you can't go in there and then have to sell yourself and write, oh, well, I did this and I did this and I did this. Right, this is my job. This is my job title. This is who I worked for. And these are the 10 main skills I got whilst in these jobs. The whole point of an interview is to go through those. So what you're finding now is you'll sit there as a recruiter and you'll get 100 CVs come through. You'll read the first 3. You ain't going to read anymore. Yeah. Because you're like, well, I'm sick of reading now. It's like reading a book. So then you'll look for key words and then it goes on the shortest part. Or if you haven't written it the right way, or they have these algorithms now that they'll put in a keyword and it will read all the CVs, pick out the ones with keywords and automatically sift them. Yeah. That's unsustainable. Yeah. That's not fair.
And actually, it is really old-fashioned. I think there's so many things in the modern world that we do now, and the thought of actually now you're making me think that how
for an employer,
old school a CV is.
The whole point is, right, so the way the employable journey works is that you identify a career you want. You then get the qualification experience that you need to break into that career. We then give you access to that career. Now, for an employer, as an employer, I'd go in there and say, right, this is my job description. This is what the job is. Now, I need someone with this qualification. I need someone with this experience, right? That's it. That's fact. So now what we do is we automatically match them and say, well, when they apply, they're ranked. Like this person's 100% experienced, 100% qualified, and soon we'll be doing personality profiling as well. So we can say tell you as an individual how you fit personally within that organisation.
Have you come up against any employers with major barriers that are still very much in the last century and don't want to employ somebody unless they've got all that experience?
I'm sure there must be
employers. There's loads. But you'll find that, business very much is change or die now. So, you think one of our biggest clients, BP, I sat there, I met the CFO of BP. He's the chair of the FTSE 100, probably one of the most powerful men in the world. I explained to him what the app does. He gave me, I gave him my card and he said, I'll email you tomorrow. And I thought, no, he's never going to do that. Next morning, 9 o'clock, I had an email.
Wow.
CC'd in was the head of HR Global, he said, I'd really appreciate if you met with this guy. I got there, they went, yep, this is fantastic. That's what we're all about. And then it was funny, we was going for our crowdfunding and someone came and wrote, on the crowdfunding, they can ask you questions. Said, why would a £118 billion company waste their time with a startup? I was like, exactly. Ask that question. Yeah. Because they see something that's the future. So really, it's a double-edged question, isn't it?
So you've got some major clients involved. I think we mentioned at the beginning actually that you have done some national press, national media. What's going on at the moment, and what does the future hold for Imployable and for Pete Kelly?
And then we won the NatWest Entrepreneur of the Year Awards as well, which was massive. I think we're the first service leavers to win that, I think.
When you say we, tell us who you've got behind you.
Oh, there's this guy called Kieran who I keep carrying.
Kieran's a good egg.
Oh, Kieran.
Kieran's a good bloke and he's bloody good at what he does, and he is very much I'm the tech visionary side of everything, Kieran's the one who engages with people, and that's what he's really good at. So when we're talking about deals with the job centre, I'd work out how technically it's possible and the best way forward. He goes and speaks to the job centre, and makes sure that it can be done on a human level. And he very much sits in the wings, but he's absolutely pivotal to what happens. And what it means is, together now with the team that we've got, I mean, we've grown.
You've grown massively in the last year.
Since February last year, we've gone from 2 of us to 12 of us, 5 developers and a project manager, and a board that includes the former head of O2 business is our non-exec director. Our chairman sold his company years ago and is an absolute genius, and former exec for HSBC is was our interim chairman. You know, we've got really big people sat on our board and sat around us. And
but how do you feel now, if you have like a quiet moment yourself, looking back? You know, however, how many years ago was it that you were unemployed in the job
3 years
centre?
ago.
So in 3 years, you've done all of this. That's such a really short amount of time to have achieved so much. What did you think 3 years ago that you'd be doing this now on our podcast?
Oh, I knew I'd be here. I just didn't know what capacity. No, I didn't. You know, and actually, if I sit here now and go, well, I'll never be there in 3 years, you know, who knows where I'll be in another 3 years.
Yeah, what's the next?
And actually, we're picking up so much speed that the next big achievement will take a lot less time to do. So I'm just trying to stay grounded at the same time, but also try and stay getting out there, you know. But when I look back, I just think to myself, well, if I could do it, anyone could do it, right? And all it takes is, it's like Tony Robbins said, the difference between success and failure is the ability to take action. So if you've got a great idea, everything you need is out there.
Keeping yourself grounded from where you've gone to where you are now and how the next 3 years could look, what does Pete Kelly do to keep himself grounded and to keep himself, you know, sort of ticking along, other than employable, being a husband, being a dad, and being a good mate?
So one way in which I stay grounded is I do stupid stuff. So I just signed up for my first mixed martial arts fight in April.
Brilliant.
So it's for cancer research. I'm likely to get my head kicked in, but 100%. I'm going to Facebook Live it to all our. We got about 25,000 Facebook followers. Yeah, but
wow.
You know, that's so I can now focus on not getting beaten up. So it means I'm not thinking about work, which means I go to the gym, which means I eat right, which means I do all these right things. And then on top of that, I've just committed to climbing Everest in 2023.
Yeah.
So I now need to do Everest Base Camp just to start working my way into it. You know, that's a big goal. So I have to eat right, and I have to stay physically and mentally healthy, and I have to do this, and it's all for earning money for charity. And I've done the London Marathon before. I've done charity boxing before. I've climbed numerous mountains. You know,
it's kind of a big deal.
No, it's just about. It's about, you know, what is it that drives. I'm an achiever. I have to be achieving stuff, or I'm dying. I think.
So if you are career searching out there rather than just job searching, if you have a look in the App Store for Android and Apple, it's Imployable with an I, isn't it? Why did you come up with that?
So if you look at, it's basically an anagram, isn't it? So it's I'm able, and an employ is a cunning undertaking to achieve a task. So the way that the logo is coloured is that I'm able is in green and then the employ is in black. So it's employable. And then it's actually the Old English spelling of employable as well.
Thank you so much to Pete Kelly for coming in and being our fantastic first official guest.
Yes, if you want to download the app, it's Imployable with an I, IMPLOYAB. I don't need to spell the whole thing. I'm just reading out letters of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Imployable with an I. And we should use this time to also say thank you to our sponsors, Red Rock
for our fantastic hoodies, which we're sporting.
T-shirts.
We've also got t-shirts from Red Rock. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin at Red Rock. Plymouth Gin. We aren't drinking gin today because we're doing dry January. Although we are meant to be going out on Saturday.
Yeah, we're not. We're only doing dry January in the week, Monday to Friday lunchtime, I think.
There will be gin next time.
Yeah.
Who else? Plymouth Armed Forces Awards.
Yeah, get your votes in before the 30th of January.
Absolutely.
Just Google them, and it is an awesome. It's going to be an awesome event.
Yep.
We're really
Plymouth Armed Forces Awards.co.uk, I believe, and they're on all social media channels as well. And
Locked On Media, thank you for your production. And we're really lucky to be working in conjunction with you. I can't think of anyone else that we need to thank. Thanks, Gillian.
Thanks, Alicia. We do need to thank our patrons on Patreon as well. Dave, Will, Dermot, Andy and Dan. We couldn't thank you enough, really, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. It's really important that we get patrons because there is loads and loads of costs involved in running a podcast. It's not about making money. It's about being able to bring this to you every week with a different story, sometimes from a different location. And it's really important that we are providing a platform for people who've got an awesome story to tell. On that note, if you know anyone that you think should be on the podcast, get in touch.
Please do. And yeah, I know I said it last time as well, but we weren't expecting to have any patrons on Patreon so far. So to have 5 already is wonderful. Thank you so much. We will hear you, see you next week. Yep, and thanks again, Peter Kelly, for coming in today. We had the best time.
Goodbye.
Bye.